Yeah, Rick, is it? You can hear me okay now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. My question is quite simple. Is I've been looking at a site which has a very thin, slim navigation menu right on the top, and it looks like there's no header, but just this thin navigation menu. I want to sort of recreate that, and I just want to know, yeah, just how that's done, and what's the best way to structure that. Um,
Perfect. And this is the site, right?
yeah, that's the site. Yeah.
This is the site. And so what this is a background image that is repeated across the top. And then it is a logo. And then it has this text. And then it's got this little tiny background image for the current tab. And so I prepared this presentation here this afternoon. And we're going to essentially do that here on our community news case study site. You can see I've already played around with it a little bit just to get some of the preliminary stuff out of the way.
Yeah.
But what I did was I created 3 images. I created a background image, I created a little logo image, and I created this little triangle image. And we're going to apply those to this community news case study site.
Okay.
And
Right.
so the first thing to do, though, is to go into our design options and set a few things. Actually, you'll see that under the nav menu, I chose a different font. I made the font larger. I changed link color and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And then I made the background color all the same, this dark blue, which is going to be the color of the band across the top. And then I also made the border go away by giving it a 0 there. And the other thing we need to do is go to our header, pardon me, not there, over here, go to our header and hide both the logo and the tagline.
Yeah.
And I think that's just about it. So we'll go ahead and save this. And you can see a bit how it's changed then. So, and now what we need to do is we need to create a function that adds that logo. Well, first the function needs to remove this nav menu from above the header, add that logo to the header, add this menu to the header, and yeah, and that's what we need to do with that. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
in custom functions PHP, this is the custom functions PHP that I used to that we're using to do this community news site. And so here is the function that I wrote, and I'm going to uncomment these lines. So the function is called, well, the first thing we do is we remove the thesis nav menu. So that's remove action, thesis hook before header, thesis nav menu. And then we have our function BYOB custom header. And the only thing we're doing in this function is we are creating a link with an image. And that link is back to our home page. So http://www.community.bybtutorial.com. That takes us back to our home page. And then we just have the image address for that image. And I stored that under Thesis 1.8 custom images folder, and it's called logo.ping. And then I added a couple other things like alt text and a title to it as well. And then we close out that link. And so all we really have, no HTML structure really, except for just an image link that sits in here. And then we're going to add this function. So we're going to add action thesis hook header. That's where we're going to put it inside the header. And the function name is BYOB custom header. So to this hook, we are hooking this function here. And then after that, to the same hook, we are going to hook the thesis nav menu. So it's a pretty simple structure to kind of reorganize or rearrange, to insert a logo and then to put the nav menu beside it.
Yeah.
So
So you haven't got rid of the header. You've just put this nav menu inside the header.
yes, what I've done is I've put the image inside the header first. And then after I put the image in the header, then I put the nav menu in the header.
Right, right.
Okay. So I didn't get rid of the header. I just turned off the logo and the tagline. So there's nothing displayed. And then I add image and put the nav menu back in the header. You may remember that the default location for the Thesis nav menu is the hook before header, right? That's where it's hooked right now, which is why we remove it from that hook. Okay, so that's all the code. That's all the PHP and HTML code. Everything else becomes CSS. So I'm going to upload that custom functions PHP file, upload that to the site, come back over here now and refresh it. I must have failed to upload. Let's see, let's just make sure we're connected to the right place again. Community. I might have had the wrong site connected. So themes, Thesis 1.8, custom. Actually, it's important to notice that I put those 3 images in here. So there's the logo.ping, there's that header background image.ping, and then there's that little white arrow called current.ping. So those 3 images are also on the site now. So then we go to custom functions PHP and we upload that. And let's try that again. Okay, I have done something wrong. Oddly enough, even though I practiced this. What did I do wrong? I didn't save it. You don't practice saving. I didn't save the change. Okay, there we go. Now, if we refresh this page. Okay, so there's our little logo. And here is our nav menu. And now what we're going to do is we're going to use CSS to give you all the effects, all the rest of the effects that you're looking for. And so we're going to open it up in Firefox in order to make that work. And refresh this in Firefox. Okay, and we'll go to Custom CSS, and I've given us spots to make these changes here. So the first thing we want to do is give ourselves that background image. And so that's going to be under body. And this background image is 20 pixels wide and 90 pixels tall. And we're going to repeat it all the way across the top over and over and over again. So that is going to be body.custom. And then opening parentheses and or bracket and closing bracket. And then background image colon and then let's see, yes, URL, opening parentheses, opening quotation marks, I think it's single quotation mark actually, http:// www.byobtutorial.com/ and then in order to avoid typing all the rest of the stuff, let's go to images. We'll pick up WP content, themes, Thesis 1.8 custom and images off of FileZilla. And let's see. Then backslash, and then that was called, I forgot, it's called header background ping. So we'll copy that, come back over here, paste it, and then single quotes, and then closing parentheses, and then semicolon, and over. Now is that showing up yet? Doesn't look like it's showing up yet. Oh yeah, there it is. So right now what it's doing is it's repeating both in the X and in the Y direction. So what we're going to do here is say background repeat repeat colon repeat hyphen X semicolon. So now it only repeats in the X direction. So if we close it, you can see there's our band. So the next thing we have to do is we have to make this space here, we have to make it transparent so that you can see the band behind it. And if we right click on that element to see what that is, if we look at div ID page, you can see that it's got a background color of white, FFF. So this is what we need to change in order to make that background color go away. So then we'll come here and we'll say dot custom # page. And then 1, 2, 3, and then that is going to be background color colon transparent semicolon. Okay, so now we've got our background image running all the way across there. The next thing to do then is to bring this, well, first let's just split, let's move these things into place. So we'll start off with header. And so you can see the header has got padding and page has got padding. So we're going to get rid of all of the page padding actually, or at least the top padding. Padding hyphen top colon 0px. Okay, that popped that up. And we'll leave the header padding alone for a moment. But the next thing we want to do is we want to take this image and float it left so that the menu bar can come up beside it. So that is going to be dot custom # header, because that's where we attached it, img, and then we are going to say float left colon left. Okay, so now that floated left and allowed the menu to drop up beside it, although I think we want the menu to float to the right. So we'll do that here real quick. We'll say dot custom ul dot menu, which is, you can see the entire, you can see that what we're talking about is this right here, the UL class menu. And right now, because we haven't told it to float, its space actually goes over the top of the graphic, even though it doesn't. But once we float it to the right, that's the space given to the menu will go down to its minimum size. So float colon right semicolon. Okay, so now it's dropped over there and UL menu is only as big as the menu is. And we have, you know, a whole bunch of that functionality. Whoops. Something funny happened though. You know what? I think I screwed up my CSS in here someplace. What did I do wrong? Because now my page is entirely thrown off. Oh, something happened to content to, what did I do that make that happen? I'm going to stick this and then refresh that screen and see what happens. Huh. Padding top 0 pixels, background color transparent, custom header image float left, custom UL menu float right. Okay, so the problem is caused by this statement, custom UL menu float Okay. Float right is correct, but we also want to clear both. Clear, colon, both, semicolon. Is that it? Nope. Clear right, not left. Nope, that didn't do it either. Crazy. It did not do that to me earlier today. And so why is that the case? Because I don't need the clear. Float right. Menu, float left. You know, it almost feels to me like I've got an error in here that's throwing something off. If I float left, that doesn't fix it. If I don't float at all, that does fix it. Odd. Okay, well, I'm going to leave that alone for a moment while I think about it. I'm not exactly sure why that... What's happening is with this floating right, it is giving space in between community news and this for it to pop up, right? So I could pop up in between is what's happening. And so it's trying to move itself up in between. And then as it moves over, then this doesn't have any room anymore. And then it drops down below it. And so now I would have thought that content would have floated left. Well, maybe I just say clear, maybe I clear both under header. Let's try that. So dot custom # header. Clear, colon, both, semicolon. And then this should allow float right. FLOAT, colon, RIGHT, semicolon. Nope, that didn't work. Okay, well, I'm going to leave that float out of it for the moment and then try to figure out what that problem is. Okay, so, but we still have, and we could easily just give ourselves some margin, right, to move it over to margin left, colon, what is that? Let's call it 400 pixels or 50. So now our menu pretty much goes to the edge. So that gives us the same result. Although as soon as you add a new menu item, we will need to come back in here and change that. Now let's you know, there are a lot of different ways to get a task done, and I figure as long as it looks the way you want it to look, it's almost good enough. Okay, so Brian says, welcome to Float Hell. And yes, you guys do get a chance to see me troubleshoot problems. Okay, even when I've practiced beforehand. So we got here. The only thing we have left to do really is to get this little background image to show up under the current tab. And so, and this is going to be similar to an answer that I gave this morning, actually, I think, because what we have to do is we have to reference, well, the first thing we have to do is we have to make these menu items bigger, because what we're going to do is we're going to make that little triangle a background image to these tabs. And I guess I'm going to do that first. So we do dot custom dot menu a. And then we're going to, rather than type this stuff, we're going to go steal this background image and paste it there. And then instead of being header background ping, it is actually, what did I say that was? Current ping. Okay, and we don't want to repeat, so instead of background repeat X, we're going to say no repeat. No repeat. I think I need a hyphen in there. Yep, no repeat. And then we need to give it a position. So background position, colon, and that's going to be bottom center. Okay. So now that you can, with the triangle here, now we need to make the bottom of this tab down to the bottom of this thing. And so what I would do then is give myself some padding. Oh, pardon me, that's current menu A. And actually what we really want here is dot current A. And now only the current one has the arrow. Right. But now we need to make this larger so that the arrow is down where you want it. And so we're going to steal most of this code. Copy. Paste it above it. Get rid of that current. And we are going to do what? We're going to add padding. Padding. What happens if we give it 20 pixels all the way around? Okay, margin left, let's make it 400. Let's make it 350. Okay. Okay, that works. So then that's not quite enough though for the bottom. So then what we'll do is we'll say the top is 20 pixels. Well, actually, we'd rather this be a little bit more centered. So let's make the top 10 pixels. Let's make left and right 20 pixels. Let's make the bottom 30 pixels and 20 pixels. Okay. So now this is a little bit better centered. It needs to be more than 30 pixels though, it looks like. Let's call it 30. Is that 5 maybe? Almost. Let's see. Let's make the top a little bit more. Let's make it 15. There we go. And so now what happens is that little arrow, the bottom of that arrow is sitting, you know, on the bottom line of the blue. Yeah. And it would all be perfect had I figured out that, and I got that float thing right. Yeah. And I'm not quite sure why that. Oh, let's get rid of some of the. Let's get rid of the padding on the left and right of this, of the header. So the header, no, it doesn't have much padding left and right. The top padding is fine. So in terms of its padding, it's got padding top and bottom. Padding left and right is 1.1. So we could say here padding colon 2.2 EM and then 0. So that covers this gets top and bottom and this gets left and right. And that gets rid of some of this space here. So does that look basically what you want it to look like?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Rick. Fantastic.
Okay. So I'm going to post this code. Well, first, actually, we have to do, all we've done is played with the code. The very first thing we have to do is add it to our custom CSS file now. Copy, custom CSS, and paste it. Okay. Save it. Upload it. And let's check it. See if it looks right in these other versions of the site. Okay. It does. Let's look at an Internet Explorer. Here's a drum roll, please. We'll see whether or not that works with Internet Explorer. It's not that hard to get stuff to work in Internet Explorer, but it's important to test because there it is. It's not working in Internet Explorer because it needs that float right. If we open this up in or float left would work also. If we open this up, open up the developer tools and say go to CSS and go to custom CSS. And then if we scroll down here to, where to go? Image. Okay, that's float left. UL menu. If we add an attribute, and let's say float right, FLOAT colon RIGHT. Nope. Float left. EFT. 0. Isn't that funny? Why would that be the case? Okay, now I'm sorry I suggested we check it out here. Let's see. Okay, what am I doing wrong here? Let's refresh this thing. It looked better a moment ago. Okay, go back to developer tools. Custom CSS. You know, it's because we need to explicitly set, I forgot, in Internet Explorer, that's the one IE thing in Thesis. You know, Thesis got an IE only style sheet, and it sets the width of the menu to be 100%. I think that's what it is. I think we need to come here and we need to say, we just need to give it an explicit width. So call it width colon, that looks like it's about 500 pixels, 500 px. Okay, 450. No, that's not it. 500 px. That was it. So we need to give the menu item an explicit width as well, because without an explicit width, the IE fix for the Thesis nav menu breaks our little scheme here. And I should have remembered that, but we'll just go ahead and come back over here and do that to it. UL menu, and then width colon 550px semicolon. Save the document. Upload the document. Refresh the document. Okay. And what else did I do? I think I had a float on that too, didn't I? That I forgot about. Did I? Custom CSS. UL menu. Add attribute. Float. If I float left, what happens? If I float right, what happens? So, oh, it didn't, oh, I didn't upload the silly fixed thing. I didn't upload custom CSS. Okay, refresh it now. There we go. Actually, it's a good thing we came to IE because I totally forgot that Thesis has this extra Internet Explorer setting for the nav menu, which sets its width to 100%, which interferes with its ability then to float up beside this Internet Explorer. That doesn't apply in any of the other browsers, but it applies here. Okay. So, well, any other questions about that?
That's brilliant. Thanks so much, Rick. No, that's a fantastic. I sort of got to understand it now.
Well, and I'll post the code on the forum so that you can, capture the code and practice with it too. We'll see how to make it work. But okay, great. Anyway, it was a fun little exchange. It was a fun little trick. So I enjoyed working it out. So
okay,
okay,
thanks,
you betcha. Bye bye.